I think this time last year, none of us would have expected to be where we are today. Unprecedented, I think, is a word often overused, but it really is unprecedented.
We reacted as calmly and in as measured a way as we could, while also recognizing potentially the severity of the situation.
But we did approach it with considerable sang-froid, and we thought deliberately about our customers and about our people and how we were going to behave towards those two principal concerns of ours, and we planned it accordingly. The uncertainty was the thing. That was the striking factor that was common to everybody, and not surprisingly, but it was the different layers of uncertainty, I think, that were interesting to look at. You had people worried about their own staff, the uncertainty of time, how long it was going to be before we would return to normal, if indeed ever. And the insurance industry has demonstrated it many, many times before. There was also this underlying resilience that exists in the industry, it exists in the market.
The comms requirements from our clients still involved getting them profile in the insurance and wider media in much the same way that we always had done. The fact that they were working from home in the same way that we were, and it really made it easier in a way, because they recognized the fact that they had to communicate to keep getting their messages across.
Interestingly, one of the most common questions I faced were, what are other people doing? How are other people handling this? And there was because it was new for everybody, people wanted to learn from other people's experience and other people's ways of dealing with what they were facing.
You try to plan and prepare for every eventuality, but every now and then that thing happens that you didn't see coming.
In any crisis, you have to communicate, let people know what's going on. And that's what we did at the beginning of the pandemic. We let our team know what was going on. We let our clients know what we were doing, and we told them what to do and how to communicate with their own teams and their customers.
So we initiated a program of much, much more regular internal meetings. Nobody likes meetings for meeting's sake, but we needed to replace the immediacy of communication. So we instilled a program of internal meetings, both for the whole company and then client-specific teams, on a much, much more regular basis. And then with the internal audiences, we did as much as we could and still do it. And we learn from our team all the time about involving everybody in initiatives, in fun stuff as well as work stuff, to keep the energy levels high, to keep people engaged, make sure nobody's feeling remotely left behind. The planning that we undertook then stood us in very, very good stead for what was to become a much longer situation than any of us thought. But I think one thing I would say here, and it's not so much related to standard communication planning, but I do think it's evidential of people's abilities and companies' abilities to undertake big projects at times of difficulty and times of hurdle. So we've seen, during the last 12 months, we've seen new startups arrive to the market. We've seen IPOs take place. We've seen merger and acquisition activity. We've seen rebranding projects that have been undertaken in lockdown. All of those major projects require significant planning, and that is absolutely possible while this is all going on. You can plan big campaigns for big strategic moves while this is happening, and it's been done.
It doesn't need to change what you do as a business. We haven't had to change at all what we offer and what we do well and the objective of the advice that we're giving customers. We've just had to change how we do it and how we deliver it.
If you break everything down into its smallest component part, focus on that audience, focus on that message, and then deliver it, you're going to cover the ground. The bigger piece, the big company communication, happens the same way it's always happened, because big companies don't get together in the same physical way now or a year ago or 2 years ago. It's impossible to bring thousands of people together, or at least on a regular basis. You might have done it virtually a couple of years ago, and you're still doing it virtually. But small teams do get together. So that's what we found is important to focus on, breaking it down into the smaller units and making sure you focus on the audience and the message that's relevant for that.
Communication is just as important as it has ever been. It's not more important, it's as important. We're just more aware of how important it is.
There's more news about and more publications about, and news has got faster and faster in that, you know, every half an hour you get a BBC news flash or a Sky news flash or a CNN news flash. You get the same with the insurance media. You're getting, you know, emails, maybe 20 a day, just on different insurance stories. You have to make sure that your story is better described, better PR'd than the next story, because otherwise you'll simply disappear without trace.
As the talk of vaccinations and light at the end of the tunnel becomes louder, don't stop doing what you've been doing so well for nearly a year now. As people start talking about possibly returning to the office and things returning to normal, you know, normal's the wrong word, but there is a danger that you will stop doing what you've been doing so well for the past year. And that is the reassurance and the communication and the looking after people, not just looking after your own teams, but looking after clients and looking after contacts. That's got to keep going. It's got to keep going forever, because it's been a very good experience, and that should always be the case. We should always be like that. This has just been a trigger to get us to do it better and more of it, and that should always be the case. So my advice would be, as you know, as the pitch changes, don't take your eye off the ball.